It's exciting. I'm hoping for something very substantial in the garden shaft. This is where the treasure hunt actually
What if everything people had been searching for over the past 200 years was finally discovered? 30 feet beneath the mysterious, cursed ground of Oak Island, a signal appeared, something no one could ignore. When Rick Lagina ordered the scan, the results were shocking. It revealed what seemed impossible, a massive hidden chamber carved deep into solid bedrock. This wasn't wood or random debris. It was intentional, carefully built, protected. And when they finally broke through, they didn't just find history, they found treasure. Stacks of gold bars stamped with royal seals, long thought to be lost forever. Chests filled with emeralds and deep red rubies. A treasure so vast that its estimated value exceeded $110 million. For the first time in centuries, the legend of Oak Island was no longer just a mystery. It felt real. But the moment they entered that chamber, everything changed. The island reacted. A violent surge of seawater burst into the tunnel, flooding it within seconds, as if the island itself was trying to bury the secret once again. This wasn't just hidden treasure. It was a system, a defense, a warning. Because this discovery hinted at something far bigger than pirates, a forgotten network, a hidden vault, possibly a powerful group that once ruled the seas and concealed their wealth where no one could ever find it. For decades, people had searched. Many failed. Some never returned. Now, with gold finally recovered from the depths, one question remains. Did they simply find treasure? Or unlock something that was never meant to be opened? Before diving deeper into this astonishing discovery, stay with us, because what comes next may change everything you thought you knew about Oak Island. And things get even more intriguing when you connect this discovery to some of the most feared names in pirate history. What if the treasure beneath Oak Island wasn't just buried, but deliberately hidden by legendary figures like Captain William Kidd and Blackbeard? For generations, stories claimed these pirates moved vast fortunes to the New World to keep them out of British hands. Most historians dismiss these tales as myths. But now, the evidence is starting to tell a different story. The team uncovered a fragile, centuries-old map marked with a chilling label. Kidd's Treasure, written in faded ink, as if someone wanted it remembered but never found. This wasn't random loot buried in haste. It was organized, engineered, protected. Layer by layer, the island revealed a carefully designed defense system, pressure plates, hidden flood tunnels, and structural traps built more than 300 years ago. This didn't feel like the work of desperate pirates. It felt deliberate, precise, as if it involved forces far beyond ordinary treasure hunters. And the deeper the team went, the more the island seemed to resist. Drills snapped against unexpected rock. Pumps failed without warning. Equipment that should have worked flawlessly suddenly didn't. It was as if Oak Island itself was pushing back, guarding something buried far below. To better understand what they were dealing with, the team deployed ground-penetrating radar and seismic imaging, scanning nearly 160 feet underground. What appeared on the screens stunned everyone. A perfectly rectangular void, about 30 feet long and 10 feet wide, with sharp edges and clean lines. Natural caves don't form like that. This was clearly a man-made chamber, carved directly into solid bedrock. Reaching it required extreme effort. The team sank a massive 10-foot wide steel shaft, cutting through unstable ground and bypassing deadly flood tunnels that had stopped explorers for centuries. The cost was enormous, but the reward was finally within reach. At the bottom, they discovered a giant slab of hand-cut granite, held in place by ancient iron hinges, now rusted deep orange with age. Symbols were etched into its surface: a skull, a square and compass, and a Templar cross. An unusual blend of pirate imagery and secret society symbols. A small camera was carefully lowered through a narrow opening. What it revealed left the entire team speechless. Grainy footage showed stacks of gold bars arranged neatly on wooden pallets, still gleaming even in the dim light. Rick Lagina and Marty Lagina stood in silence. In that moment, the legend was no longer just a story. It was real. But whoever built this vault didn't just hide it, they protected it. As the team moved forward, a low grinding sound echoed through the chamber. Beneath their feet were flat stones, slightly lower than the rest of the floor. Pressure plates, ancient, hidden, and still working. And just like that, the system was triggered. A deafening roar shattered the silence. Seawater exploded into the chamber from hidden gates carved deep within the walls. This wasn't a minor leak. It was a powerful torrent rushing in with unstoppable force. The legendary flood tunnel system was real, and now it had been activated, but it wasn't triggered by digging. It responded to something even more unsettling: the presence of people inside the vault. Panic spread as the water quickly began to rise around the treasure. What started as the greatest discovery in Oak Island's history turned into a desperate race against time. If they didn't act quickly, the ocean would reclaim everything. High-capacity pumps were rushed into position and lowered into the shaft as the team fought against the incoming flood. For hours, the roar of machinery battled the relentless surge of seawater. The system was brilliantly ruthless, designed to increase pressure as the ocean tide rose, making the flooding even more intense. Whoever created it wanted the treasure to remain hidden, no matter what. With the water barely held at knee level, the recovery operation began. There was no room for heavy machinery. The chamber was too unstable. Instead, they relied on ropes, pulleys, and pure human effort. One by one, 40-pound gold bars were carefully lifted toward the surface. Each chest was secured in reinforced nets and slowly winched up the 160-foot shaft. Every movement was tense. Every second mattered. Every sound, the creak of ropes, the splash of water, felt like a warning. It was as if they weren't just battling the island, but the intentions of whoever had built this place centuries ago. Then, something unexpected changed everything. Among the piles of gold and gemstones, they discovered a smaller chest. It was made of cedar wood, a material known for surviving even the harshest conditions. But unlike the others, this chest wasn't filled with treasure. Inside, carefully sealed in wax and oilcloth, were leather-bound books and rolled charts. At first, it seemed like a disappointing find. But that feeling didn't last long. Within moments, it turned into shock. Because these documents were far more valuable than gold. They didn't just describe the treasure, they explained it. What the team had uncovered wasn't a random stash left behind by a single pirate. It was part of something much bigger. Something organized. As experts began decoding the writings, filled with symbols, shorthand, and cryptic markings, a startling truth began to emerge. Notorious figures like Blackbeard, Captain William Kidd, and Calico Jack weren't operating alone. They were part of a syndicate, a massive coordinated network that operated across the Atlantic during the golden age of piracy. They weren't just outlaws. They were strategists. They shared resources, mapped routes, and even maintained what appeared to be a structured financial system. According to these documents, Oak Island wasn't just a hiding place. It was a northern vault, a secure storage point in a global chain of hidden reserves. The charts revealed routes stretching from the Caribbean all the way to Madagascar. Ledgers detailed transactions, investments, and even payments made to powerful government officials. The line between pirate and politician blurred in ways no one had ever imagined. This wasn't chaos, it was calculated. These men weren't just stealing wealth, they were managing it. What Rick Lagina and Marty Lagina uncovered may only be a small piece of a much larger hidden empire. The $110 million in gold could be just one deposit in a vast network of secret vaults scattered across the world. Some locations hinted at in the recovered maps have never been explored. Buried in swamps, hidden beneath remote islands, or possibly lying beneath ancient cities in Europe. This discovery doesn't just rewrite the story of Oak Island. It reshapes the entire history of piracy. Because the evidence now suggests that 18th century pirates weren't reckless thieves. They were part of one of the most sophisticated and organized criminal enterprises the world has ever seen. They created a system that remained hidden for over 300 years. And that might be the most unsettling part of all. What people overlooked wasn't just the treasure. It was the brilliance behind the plan. This wasn't about hiding gold. It was about building a power structure that existed beyond nations, beyond kings, beyond laws, a hidden economy operating in the shadows. As this information came to light, it sent shockwaves through the worlds of archaeology and history. Experts from major institutions rushed to Nova Scotia, eager to examine the documents firsthand. What Rick Lagina and Marty Lagina uncovered wasn't just a discovery, it was proof. After decades of searching and facing skepticism, they had finally succeeded. But they didn't just find gold. They uncovered a lost chapter of human history, and with that came a new kind of danger. Because finding treasure is one thing, keeping it is something else entirely. Oak Island was no longer a quiet, isolated dig site. Almost overnight, it became a global hotspot. News of the $110 million discovery spread rapidly, drawing attention from around the world. Helicopters circled overhead. Drones filled the skies. Unmarked boats lingered just beyond the shoreline. Watching, waiting. The team quickly realized a harsh truth. When you uncover something this valuable, you don't just make history, you become a target. Security had to be tightened immediately. What was once a small operation turned into a heavily guarded zone, complete with surveillance systems, restricted access, and constant monitoring. Oak Island had become a fortress. The syndicate that once protected this treasure may be long gone, but the greed it inspired is still very much alive. And the documents they discovered only made things more complicated, because those maps and books weren't just records of the past. They were guides to even greater wealth. Hidden vaults, secret routes, locations scattered across the globe, waiting to be found. But with every new clue came new risks. If the traps on Oak Island were this advanced, what might be waiting at the other sites? For the Lagina brothers, this wasn't the end of the journey. It was the beginning of something far more dangerous. Hidden within the coded texts were references to something called a failsafe, a final secret known only to the highest-ranking members of the syndicate. Something so important it could outweigh all the gold combined, a final layer of protection, or perhaps a truth that was never meant to be revealed. Now the team faces an impossible choice. Do they hand over the maps to governments and let global powers fight over what remains? Or do they continue the search themselves, following the trail left behind by history's most mysterious network? Every option carries risk. Every step forward could trigger something they don't fully understand. Because this is no longer just a treasure hunt, it's a global puzzle, with consequences no one can predict. The maps point to distant swamps, remote islands, and even locations beneath ancient cities. Each one could hold unimaginable wealth, or deadly systems designed to protect it forever. And the deeper they go, the clearer it becomes. The $110 million they recovered might be just a fraction of what's still out there. There could still be billions hidden out there. But in the end, the real treasure might not be the gold at all. It might be the knowledge, the realization that pirates like Blackbeard, Captain William Kidd, and Calico Jack weren't just criminals roaming the seas. They were the masterminds behind something much bigger. A shadow empire. A system so advanced and carefully designed that it remained hidden for centuries. What started as a simple mystery in the money pit has now grown into something far beyond anyone's expectations. This wasn't just a group of pirates. It was an empire operating in secrecy. And now, for the first time in history, that hidden world is being exposed. Which raises an even bigger question. What was their true goal? Was it only about wealth? Or were they building something far more ambitious? A hidden nation? A secret order? A system designed to outlast the very world that created it? Whatever the truth may be, one thing is certain. This story is far from over. And what comes next could change everything. But even as the team worked to secure the site, new questions began to emerge. Questions with no easy answers. Some of the translated documents pointed to coded meeting locations, secret alliances, and even ships that were never recorded in official naval history. It suggested that this syndicate didn't just move gold. They moved information, influence, and power across continents without leaving a trace. Late at night, when the island finally fell silent, crew members began noticing strange things. Faint lights flickering offshore, distant engine sounds with no ships in sight, and occasional interference with their equipment. No one could say for sure whether it was coincidence or something more intentional. But one thing became clear. This discovery had attracted attention far beyond historians and treasure hunters. At the same time, pressure started building from powerful outside forces. Governments, private collectors, and influential organizations all wanted access to what had been found. Legal battles were inevitable. After all, who truly owns something buried for over 300 years? The landowners? The government? Or does it belong to history itself? These questions quickly became just as dangerous as the traps hidden beneath the island. For Rick Lagina and Marty Lagina, the mission had changed completely. What began as a dream to solve a mystery had turned into a responsibility to protect it. Every decision they make now could shape how this story is told for generations. And then there's the final mystery, the one barely mentioned in the documents, a reference to something deeper than gold, deeper than vaults, something described only as the final account. There's no clear explanation, no exact location, just a warning, repeated multiple times in code, as if even those who wrote it were afraid of it. If that secret is real, then everything discovered so far might only be the beginning. Because sometimes the final secret is the most dangerous one of all. Please subscribe to the Timefold channel, and don't forget to like,